Hello, everyone. Welcome to another week of Ethiopian history. I know for the English session, I've been moving around quite some. You're going to have to forgive me for that. Uh, I'm still trying to get my time situated. It's been extremely busy. I actually shouldn't be coming here live, but I believe these are really important conversations for us to have. So I'm here with you guys today to talk about a very important and yet what I believe to be a very misunderstood subject. So I'm here to do another week of Ethiopian history. Uh, we're just gonna wait until some people come in, and then we'll start from there. Let's give it a few more minutes, and we'll get started soon. All right. Again, if you're just joining us, uh, we are here on another week of talking about Ethiopian history. Um, I think we have some exciting stuff to talk about today. Uh, and I know I haven't been consistent, at least on the English front, um, but hopefully we'll get some engaging conversations going today. If you guys are new to my page, the past couple of weeks, I've been doing a series of talks on Ethiopian history. One week I do it in Amharic, another week I do it in English, um, and but the topics are the same in whatever language I do it in. So those of you who are joining us for the first time, uh, welcome, and I promise we'll start soon. Um, and we'll get it underway. I'm really excited to talk about some things. Um, those of you guys who are joining me, I ask you to share this live with others so that it can reach other people and people can learn along. So, if you're new to my page, I what I try to do is I spend the first couple of minutes uh, talking and uh, presenting you what I have for the day. And then the latter part of the program is reserved for discussions. So people can come and have discussions and ask questions, and we've had some really engaging conversations, especially if you're on Facebook, YouTube, or Instagram. Feel free to type up your questions and I'll respond to them. If you guys are joining me on TikTok, you could request to come up, and then you can ask your questions directly. So I'm streaming in YouTube and Facebook and Instagram. But if you really do want to have a dialogue with me, feel free to hop onto my TikTok and then ask questions directly to me. Have you heard of the book Ethiopian Warriorhood, Defense, Land, and Society, 1800 to 1941? No, I have not. Please do share. Would be interested to read more. If you guys have recommendations on books or ideas of something that I should be reading, please let me know. I'm more than interested to see what's out there and continue learning and see what I have. Those of you guys who are joining us again, I ask that you guys share the link with others and like so that people can join us. Beta Amhara, do you know Ge'ez? I hate to say I'm an expert in Ge'ez, but I know enough Ge'ez to translate and understand enough. I don't compare myself to the scholars of the church, but I have learned and I do teach Ge'ez as well. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. I think we have a pretty cool topic for today, and it's really where did the name Ethiopia come from? And there are various, ideologies and philosophies around this. Again, I'm going to take some time to say a few words, and people, whatever side of the spectrum you may be on, you're more than welcome to join and ask questions and see we could have a dialogue. So again, if you're new to my channel, what I don't allow is disrespect. I don't like fighting. I don't like all of these negative things that we see on social media. But you are allowed to ask questions. You are allowed to challenge me. You could come on, like I said, and ask these questions head on. The reason why I started this channel is to allow us to have a reasonable dialogue about history. Again, if you're new to who I am a deacon of the church, but I've also taken some time to learn about the history of Ethiopia. Um, so for that reason, I've opened up this channel to enable us to have a reasonable conversation, a reasonable and a fair conversation. Um, Today, I think we're gonna have some cool discussions. And again, I just ask all of you to have an open mind and hear what I have to say before coming and telling me that I'm wrong and then this and that. Like, just listen. Nothing bad happens from listening. So, and then we'll talk about some of the ideas. Again, the topic of today is, where did the name originate from? Ethiopia. Of course, we say Ethiopia, Ethiopia. This. So where did it originate from? Well, uh, as far as Ethiopia, and again, like, some of these topics are going to be topics where uh, sorry, I was reading something, but some of these topics are going to be topics where I cover again in depth at another time. Again, I want to stay within the topic for today, which is on the name of Ethiopia. But when we're looking at just as far as the history of the country, where did Ethiopia? When did Ethiopia as a country emerge? This is a very complicated question, depending on what we mean by Ethiopia, the type of society, who you ask, which matters, what kind of sources you look at. You'll end up in different understandings of when the country Ethiopia emerged. I will say it's a lot earlier than the past 200 or 300 years. It's a lot earlier than that. But I will say that one of the earliest mentions of Ethiopia is found in the Holy Bible. And this has been really one of the main sources for traditional way of thinking, to say, look, Ethiopia goes back to the time of the Bible, where the Bible tells us, look, there is Ethiopia. But before going into that, we have to do a little bit of conversation about what the Bible is, what language it was written in, and how it came to Ethiopia. Because one of the things I hope everybody here on this channel will agree with me on is, the Bible was not written in Ethiopia. So, of course, basic kind of overview of the Bible. There's the Old Testament and the New Testament. The Old Testament testifies about or has prophecies about the Messiah. A good summary of the Old Testament will be the Messiah is coming. When it comes to the New Testament, it testifies about the Messiah who came. So it says the Messiah came, that is Christ Jesus. Now, going back to the Old Testament, the majority of the Old Testament was originally written in the language of Hebrew, with some exceptions of Aramaic in the book of Daniel. Now, there are some exceptions as far as Maccabees and books like that are written in Greek, but the vast majority of the Old Testament is originally written in Hebrew. And when we read this ancient Bible, originally written in sorry, originally written in Hebrew, we begin to see some unique characteristics of or names that were attributed to certain regions. For example, the ancient place of Nubia, or the kingdom of Nubia, spanned from present day Upper Egypt to Sudan. And this region was referred to as Kush in the Hebrew Bible. Um, if you think, hopefully, when I say Kush, that should ring a bell, because Kush in the Bible, we're told, is the one of the sons of Ham, or the grandson of Noah. Now, here's what we need to know about the Bible. If you guys don't know anything about the Bible and you're new to the Bible, here's what you need to know. After the flood, so there was a great flood during the time of Noah. After the flood, there were three kids remaining on earth: Shem, Ham, and Japhet. And these three children were told to go into the world and kind of establish their kingdom. And wherever they went and they established their kingdom, that place was called after them. And when their children went out into the world and established civilizations and kingdoms, then those places became associated with whoever established that particular region. So whenever we read in the Bible of a region named Kush, it kind of suggests that that region was established by Kush, the person who is the son of Ham, the grandson of Noah. Does that make sense? So we have Noah, we have Kush. We have Noah, we have Ham, and then we have Kush. So in the Bible, it tells us different regions, or the kingdom of Nubia, from upper region of Egypt to about Sudan. That region was called Kush. So the takeaway from this is, Kush was the place where Kush founded. Does that make sense? So now, if you're listening to me, you're like, okay, I popped onto this channel because I want to know about Ethiopia. Me and Kush, all right, that's cool for Kush. What does that have to do with Ethiopia? Well, as you probably know, as the Hebrew Bible, or as Greek culture started to take place and take hold of the world, what we call Hellenization, then the Hebrew Bible was translated into the Greek language. We could have a full class, a full discussion about the entirety of the Bible and how that happened. At this time, the Old Testament, where the Old Testament will called it Kush in Hebrew, in Greek it became Ethiopia. It was translated as Ethiopia, and I just want to share that with you guys so you can see it as I'm talking about it. So let me see if I can do it with. Um, I'm really new to these things, so forgive me. I think, yep, and that should do it. All right. So I hope everyone could see um, what I have in front of me. Let's see. Let's do. All right. I'm doing the best that I can. So here we have the Hebrew Bible. And the Hebrew Bible, I don't know if I can do this. I'm trying to share with all the um, channels, and it's really difficult to do. So bear with me for a second. Okay, let's try this. Okay, I think we're okay. So here I don't read Hebrew, but if you see this highlighted region, I have a little cheat sheet here, and it tells me that this word is Kush. This is the Hebrew one. This is the Hebrew one. So the first row we see has the term Kush. All right, let's move to the left. I do read Greek. This same verse, this is in the book of Psalm, verse 68, chapter 68, verse 31. Ethiopia Ethiopia shall stretch out her hands onto God. This is the verse that we all are very familiar with in the Ethiopian tradition. Well, that same verse in Hebrew originally has Kush. Kush. The Greek translates this word Kush to the Greek Ethiopia. By the way, the Ge'ez Bible was originally translated from the Greek Bible, and later on was updated using the Arabic forlag. I'll get into that another time. This is not really a biblical class, so I won't focus on that. So again, we have Kush here in the Hebrew Bible, but here in the Greek, clearly it says Ethiopia. This Ethiopia comes into the Ge'ez as Ethiopia. Let's do that one more time. We begin with Kush. The Hebrew is translated into Greek. You have Ethiopia, which is translated into the Ge'ez Ethiopia. By the way, just for comparison, I also have Arabic. For those of you who read Arabic, clearly this has Kush. Kush, showing us that the Arabic forlag, at least this manuscript, is using not the Greek, but the Hebrew to translate it into Arabic. And then we have the King James Version, which also reads Ethiopia. Now, if you guys look at other versions, you'll see this exact verse being translated as Kush shall soon stretch out her hands onto God, leaving many people wondering why the word play between Kush to Ethiopia to Ethiopia back to Kush to Ethiopia. So what's going on here? Again, this is one of the first occurrences that we find the term Ethiopia. All right. So what does that tell us? Well, first of all, that tells us that at least when it comes to the Ge'ez Bible, we know that it must have been derived from the Greek translation and not the Hebrew translation. The oldest one is the Hebrew, and then the Greek, and then Ge'ez or Arabic. Ge'ez is probably earlier than almost definitely earlier than Arabic. And then obviously English is like yesterday. So when we're talking about the term Ethiopia occurring in the Bible, at least Ethiopia in the Ge'ez Bible, we know that this is being translated from the Greek Forlaga. Forlaga means the Greek, the one that comes before it, rather than the Hebrew one. There's been many discussions, many confusions about some traditions suggesting that the Ge'ez was translated from the Hebrew. I can almost guarantee you that it has not been translated. For the large majority, it has not been translated from the Hebrew Bible. We know that it was translated from the Greek Bible. So what does that tell us? What does that mean? Why should we care? Well, for our tradition, this is based on linguistic arguments that I'm telling you, based on the scholarship. This is what it really tells us. So, but what does that mean? What does that mean, and what can we interpret from this data? Well, for our oral tradition and our forefathers in the Ethiopian tradition, they're pretty adamant in saying that the term Ethiopia is derived from the person Ethiopis. And now I want to share that with you. Work with me a little bit, because it's gonna take time for me to put it up on all the streams. But I think this is a worthy enough exercise for all of us. All right. So this is the tradition in the Ethiopian history. So you have Noah, who begot Shem, Ham, and Yafet. Ham begot Kush. Now, as far as the Bible, it stops there. We don't really know who's the children of Kush. We don't have that information in the Bible. But the oral tradition tells us that Kush begot Sheba, who begot Ethiopis. And the working traditional view is this person, Ethiopis, went on to establish Ethiopia. You see how it works? And Ethiopis' son, Aksumawi, went to establish the Aksumite Empire, the Aksumite region. This is the tradition that currently holds in the Ethiopian way. Again, as far as the linguistic argument, here's the Hebrew Bible Kush, the Greek Ethiopia, the Ge'ez Ethiopia, the Hebrew Kush, and the English Ethiopia. I think that's pretty clear. So now we're left to discern between these two trajectories, or these two ideologies, or these two theories as to where the term Ethiopia emerged from. Well, if you ask me where it derives from, well, before that, let me back up and say, so why did the Greek Bible, we just looked at the Greek Bible, it says Ethiopias. Why does the Greek Bible say Ethiopies when the Hebrew Bible said Kush? That's the question. Why translate Kush into Ethiopias? Well, the Greek word atheo means black, and opis means face. When you put the term together, Ethiopias or Ethiopia means black face. So when the Westerners or the Greek teachers like Herodotus and Homer, they were writing about African societies, particularly around that area, the term that was invoked was the term Ethiopia, meaning black people. So when they used the term, they were using it to indicate a group of black people. This was how the term was being used. So for the past, I don't know, however many decades, there's been this kind of debate about, is the Bible when the Bible says Ethiopia, is it referring to the Ethiopia we know now, or is the Ethiopia we know now coming from the grandchild of Ham, right? So we have Noah, Ham, Kush, and then Ethiopias. Well, I think this is my view. I told you I'll always tell you both versions. There's a traditional view, and then there's the scholarship view, and then what I think. This is my insertion into this discussion. I think that both are possible. I think that it's possible that the term Ethiopias is really a Greek word that was meant to mean a generic term of Black people. And yet it is possible that Ham's grandson was indeed named Ethiopias. For example, think about it this way. We know in Ethiopia the word salam, even in Arabic, means peace, the peaceful one, right? But there are people named Salam. We know the word Tigist. We often say Tigist. The name is not Tigist, it's Tigist. Means the one who has patience. And yet people are named Patience or Tigist. We have these words that exist in a language that we attribute or we give to as proper names. Similarly, I think it's definitely possible that the oral tradition can be true by having a proper name named Ethiopies, although the word in itself is most probably Greek origin. Now, a lot of people look at this and they think to themselves, why? That's a horrible thing. That's a horrible thing to be associated as the black face guys. Like our name essentially means the black ones, the black faced ones. And they paint it as something negative or something to, look away from. And I think it's the exact opposite. I think it's a beautiful thing to be called black. Yes, we are black, and black is beautiful. If you come here in America, black people are called black people, and they own it. Yes, I'm black and I'm proud. Like Black Lives Matter, and people own their blackness. So why should we be ashamed of our blackness if indeed Ethiopia means the blackface? I think it is something that we should wear with honor and say, yes, indeed, we are the ones with the black faces. I own it. Of course, we're not black. This is brown. Just like the rest of the world says we're black, but they're really brown. Nobody's really black here. But we can change that around and say, look, we own it. Black is not a bad thing. Black is a beautiful thing. But more importantly, I personally accept the term Ethiopia, even though the Greek definition may indeed show that the meaning is to mean burnt face, because the term was used to describe a group of people with varying backgrounds during the Greek times. And the term Ethiopia was a term used to unify people with varying backgrounds, with different ideologies, and possibly even different languages. So, Ethiopia, I personally think, in this present day in Ethiopia, where we have different ethnic groups, different languages, different ideologies, different philosophies, if there was ever a term that could unify us, it's probably the term Ethiopia. This is my personal undertaking, my interpretation. If there was any word that can possibly describe the state and nature of who we are, I don't think we can find a better term to describe our region than Ethiopia. I think if we try to find another term, one term will highlight one tradition over the other. It will highlight one ethnic group over the other. But the term Ethiopia, the generic term, the understanding of saying, look, we are black, says all of us can hold on to this name Ethiopia with pride, recognizing that the people within Ethiopia are as diverse as they really are, while celebrating our uniqueness of being black. Yes, we're black, and we are proud of it. But the last point that I want to show you guys is that although the term Ethiopia was being used by Western Greek writers to refer to us as Black, the term Ethiopia was definitely used by Ethiopians to refer to themselves as early as the Aksumite period. One of the falsehoods that I can't listen to. Again, I've said multiple times on this platform, I'm not here about politics. I don't care about politics. Don't come to me and talk to me about politics. I'm just not interested. But one thing that I will tell you is a thing that I don't have appetite for. It's when people say Ethiopia started 200 years ago. It's just 150 years old, or it's just 200 years old. We can't just say things for the sake of saying them. We have to back it up with evidence, archaeological evidence, evidence from texts, evidence from even a world tradition, right? But we can't just simply say things because we want to say it. And one of the things that I want to show you is that although the term Ethiopia or Ethiopies was first invoked by the speakers of Greek, like Homer, Herodotus, and even in the Bible, Ethiopians themselves refer to themselves as Ethiopians as early as the 3rd and 4th century. We're going to look at that right now. And that'll be the last thing we're looking at, and then we'll get right on to the discussion portion of this program. All right. So what I'm showing you here are what are known as the Aksumite coins. This one is, I believe, dated to 4th century. I don't have the date in front of me. Yep, this is from 300 to 315 AD. So within the Aksum Empire. If you guys read closely, I mean, it's very difficult to read here. In Greek inscriptions, you have the word Basileos. Very difficult to read. Basileos. And then on this side, you have Ethiopian. Basileos is, again, you can probably read it better here. It just means Greek. And then here it says Aksumite, but you have Aksum, Ethiopia being part of it. And then here in the Ge'ez, you have, it's very difficult to read the inscriptions. I'm trying to focus it. Very difficult. Again, this is from, let's see, 320 AD. 320 AD. And then here, the Ge'ez inscriptions. So 320 means this is before vocalization. So you just have the specific letters. You have wazaba here. You can't really see it. But the translation or the lettering is supposed to represent wazaba nexa Aksum. Wazaba nexa Aksum. But Aksum la yenegaso, the one who proceeded over Aksum. So from here, we can see that as early as the 3rd century, we have Ethiopians who were referring to themselves in the Greek language as Aksum and Ethiopies, showing that this term was very much being used on their own as well. So that wraps up the first portion of the conversation. Those of you who have questions, you can ask questions. If you're on TikTok, you can come on TikTok and ask questions, and we could discuss. If you are coming here for the first time, note that today is the English portion of the discussion. You can come on Saturday at 11 a.m. for the Amharic portion of the talk. And if you guys have any questions, I can address your questions as they come. All right. Finest Life has said, obviously, we disagree with it. What do we disagree with? If you can say. Um, and by the way, if you guys can share the link with others, make sure to share with others so that this live can reach as many people as they can. All right. Please, I'll just be addressing the questions related with today's topic. And if you guys want to come on guest, feel free to request, and we can have a conversation on the guest as well. And if there are no questions, we will conclude here. I know when it is in English, some people are very shy. Okay. Question from Kellen Bulgaro. How did Ethiopian fathers maintain relations with the Coptic Church, particularly after the conquest of Egypt? This is a very complex question. I will tell you that I will definitely be getting, I'll have a full, maybe 2, 3 sessions just on the relationship with the Coptic Church and the Ethiopian Church. It's not as beautiful and as easy and as fruitful as people think. There's been many ups and downs throughout history. So we'll definitely get into that. Thank you for that question. All right. Other questions. Other questions. Would this mean it is possible that most of some Ethiopian today are descendants of Ham or Kush? Are we too mixed at this point to say who we descended from? Al Kiran, this is a great question. So I will be talking about on the emergence of Ethiopia, and are we descendants of Ham or Sem? That's a separate conversation, right? Depending on which tradition you lean on. But either way, when we come at today, when we're looking at today, we just don't know. I think there's been so many interrelations and intermarriages and children have been born from various groups that we can't say we are descendants of this one person. I think that would be wrong to say right now. Welcome, Aditya Sinha. The question is, who are you and what is this life about? This life is about Ethiopian history. I'm coming here and talking about various questions that come around Ethiopian history. People can come here and ask questions as they please. Um, um, Other questions. Can I explain about Abyssinia? What about Abyssinia do you want me to explain? If it's the term, I'll come back to it another time. Can you talk a little thing about the Damoth dynasty? Sure. So as far as the Damoth dynasty, there's very little that we know. The Damoth dynasty is a dynasty that existed right before Aksumites. Now, sometimes it's really funny to read Western scholarship. So they have this period known as Proto-Aksum period, right before Aksum, and then Damoth was supposed to have existed beforehand. A lot of the times when you're studying history, it's hard. You begin to really learn a lot about a society when starting from the period where they began writing. So as far as Damoth, we just don't have a lot of written material from that era. So there's very little we could say about Damoth, but I will get into it. I think next week. Okay. Let's see. Can you save this live for those of us who missed the beginning? Yes, it will be saved. Uh, okay, I'm trying to answer. Those of you on TikTok, feel free to request to come live and have a conversation. Uh, why is there so much division in Ethiopia? Constant war. How is the present a reflection of history? Um, well, this page is not dedicated to the war and what's happening right now. It's dedicated to history, so I'm focusing on the historical aspect. And my theory is a lot of the misunderstandings revolve around history, hence why we're having this discussion. What was the indigenous religion of Ethiopia, which originated from there and had a lot of following? Well, this is a very difficult question to ask because it depends who you ask. Again, this deserves its own treatment on its date. So, our belief in our tradition, of course, is since the Solomonic period, we've been Jews. And then from the Bible period, from the biblical period, we've been Christians. And of course, Muslims came on to Ethiopia. But if you see some of the archaeological discoveries, we know that there were non-Abrahamic religions on site. Now, at what level, how are they operating in the region, remains to be seen. And the question that I will definitely be pondering on the next coming weeks. Okay. Okay. My question is, New Testament, does it say the Ethiopian eunuch or Kush? Great question, Adis. By the way, I'm not a doctor. There's this horrible rumor going around that I'm a doctor. I'm not a doctor, not yet. Hopefully soon. So the New Testament is written in Greek. So the Greek version says Ethiopia or Ethiopia. I didn't ignore the message about the youth wanting to be a deacon. That's an unrelated question, but feel free to message me privately and I can better assist. Uh, thank you for the kind words. All right. Let me get back to you about the term Abyssinia and how it's used in the Bible. So far, the region that we talked about, it was Kush, and when it was translated into the Greek, it was termed Ethiopia. Was the whole Africa called Ethiopia? Great question, Abil. As far as my understanding, the answer is no. Was the whole Africa called Ethiopia? As far as my understanding, the regions that were called Ethiopia were Kush or the kingdom of Nubia. So that's from Upper Egypt to Sudan. As far as Western Africa and Southern Africa, I'm not aware of that region also being called Ethiopia, which is an interesting question about was the term Ethiopia specifically to a region within Africa, and if so, why? Why was it limited to that? I think that's a great question. Thanks for putting that out there. Ethiopians are Semitic and Hamitic. Are you familiar with Falesha outcast? Yes, I am. Of course, the Beta Israel are a major conversation and a major part of Ethiopian history. I will also be talking about Beta Israel and the Jewish tradition in Ethiopia, again, from traditional sources as well as scholarship and what scholarship has to say on this topic. Thank you for that, Isaiah. Samaya asks, why do so many priests go or used to go to Gondar to study? What is its historic relevance? Well, Samaya, as you may know, Aksum was in the northern region of Ethiopia, and a lot of the Christian teachings began there and started to trickle down. So we see that a lot of the Christian teachings are further north. Of course, there's other things down south. So in certain regions, based on how people moved, they kind of cemented themselves there, and then various school teachings started to develop. Uh, Okay. Why Father Forgive Me asks, why are Ethiopians supporting Zionists? That is not related with this page. But Hannah Senabet asks, is there a historical justification that the Ethiopian eunuch is from the current land of Ethiopia? Well, the historical justification would be that the oral tradition. And one of the things that I've been saying is, the difference between how the West deals with history and how Ethiopia deals with history. So, from the perspective of Ethiopian history, we often say that the oral tradition also has to be given weight. And the oral tradition says, look, this guy was from Ethiopia and he went to Ethiopia. And I think we should really read into that. Um, Yes, West Africa was called Ethiopia by a Greek writer as early as 338 BCE. Vernon says, I'm not aware of that. If you have uh, uh, writings about it, I'll be really interested to see that. One of the things that I do know is the idea of Ethiopianism. Of course, that was during the Pan African movement, and Ethiopia was being invoked by everyone on the continent, but that has a different reason. Muluwar Kailu says, why can't girls get into the Maqdas? Again, these are questions not related with history, but if you message me privately, I will attempt to answer the questions. Um, the Nine Saints came through the north, says Lulu. I'm not sure what the question is on the Nine Saints, but I can tell you that there's more to say about the Nine Saints. Uh, Lelise D says Ethiopia is a Greek word meaning sunburnt. So technically, any person of color was considered Ethiopian. Yes, I believe that as well. However, I would love to see early writings that refer to other parts of Africa as Ethiopia. Sammy says, what is the Aksum obelisk symbolize? Is there any connection with idol worship? As far as I'm concerned, we know that the obelisks are not indigenous to Aksum. Other parts of the world utilized similar type of concepts, like Egypt, for example. So this could have been a kind of some idea that the Aksumites have seen in other regions have brought over to Aksum. At least that's my current theory. Who changed the name Abyssinia to Ethiopia, Diakon? So the earliest kind of indications or names that I've seen ascribed to Ethiopia is Bihira Agazi. And we'll talk about this when we talk about Abba Salama or Abuna Mano, Abba Kasati Brhan. In his homily, that text is translated from Greek source as early as the 5th or 6th century. And in the region, when it talks about Ethiopia, it talks about Bihira Agazi, the land of the free. That was a term that was being used to refer to the region of Ethiopia. So, and then, like I said, and we saw in the inscriptions, Ethiopia was generally used in the Greek version. So, let me do a little bit more digging on the history of Abyssinia, how it was used, and when it was used. Does the Ethiopian Bible have the Book of Enoch? So one of the things that I want to say is, Nunaya, forgive me if I'm butchering your names, but there is no such thing as Ethiopian Bible, right? Like, there's the Bible, and then there are different traditions who accept a different number of books within the Bible. There is no American Bible. There's no, like whatever Bible. We have the Bible, but different traditions have different numbers included within the Bible. So, for example, what we call the Protestant Rite or the Protestant Bible generally includes 66 books. And for example, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, this is constant throughout all the traditions. The Catholic tradition includes 73 books in their Bible, has 7 additional books onto the 66. The Eastern Orthodox has additional books than the Catholic. I think they have like 4 or 5 extra ones. And then the Ethiopian tradition includes much more extra books than the Protestant or the Catholic. So what we have is additional books, but there is no such thing as the Ethiopian Bible. So within the way that the Ethiopian tradition counts the number of books, yes, the Book of Enoch is included in that tradition. Ethiopia is a Greek word, means Ethiop. Someone says. Isaiah says, "From beyond the rivers of Ethiopia, my suppliants, even the daughter of my dispersed, shall bring mine offering." Acts 8, was he a scattered Jew? Oh, I see the question. Like I said, as far as Beta Israel, the working theory, where did they come from? I'll come back to that because there's a lot of conversation about where did the Jews come from? Who are they? Where did they, did they migrate over here? Are they descendants of the Solomonic era? These are all interesting questions that I promise I will get into. SBWABA asks, did Aksumite come from southern Arabia, or or have they been in Africa from the beginning? This was actually something that we touched into last time. I'll tell you definitively that the South Arabians migrated onto Aksum at various points, but they are not the base, or they did not start the Aksumite Empire. That is, if there was no migration from South Arabia to Aksum, Aksum still would have occurred and still would have been very much active. All right. Today people are shy to come on lives, but feel free to come on and have a conversation. Okay, was Somali part of Aksum? Aksum was a big region, and yes, it included part of the Aksumite Empire as well as Yemen. Can you check my previous question in regard to Queen Indika, sorry, and her kingdom that rule up to India? I don't know what that question was. Sorry, can you re-ask that question, Kabenna? Were territories south of the Abai part of Aksum? We'll talk about how big Aksum was and the working theory about Aksum, I promise. Okay, Mando Man 51 says, do Ethiopian Christians reverence people like Abraha who conquered Yemen? I believe you're talking about King Caleb. We show reverence to him because he was a king. We believe that he was a monk. And I do not use the word conquered when it comes to Yemen. I promise you, we'll talk about Caleb. I think this is a beautiful story and a story that needs to be told accurately. But we'll get into that portion. So right now we're just on the name, I promise, but we'll go region by region and talk about King Caleb. This is a very beautiful story. If you guys not aware of it, during the 6th century when there were persecutions in the city of Najran, King Caleb goes to Yemen to rescue the Christians. I do not use the word conquered when talking about this story. My family is Jewish from Amhara and Gondar. Really excited to learn your perspective on the history of the Kuranagas and all. Art Delhi 420 says, thank you so much. Feel free to join us when we have further conversations about these things. Okay, let's see. The problem is when I'm going from one screen to the other, people are missing questions, and I do apologize for that. Can you explain the concept of How left the 99 angels to come down from heaven to look for Adam? This is a Christology question. I'll get back into this maybe another time when we do have conversations around Christianity. Today's question is around history. Is there any historical evidence whether the toe sign cross, oh, just a sign cross originated from Ethiopia or Egypt? I'm not aware of that question or debate, Lulu, but would love to see what other people have to say. Can you do research on Andromeda, Ethiopia princess? It's very ancient. Is she real? I'll look into it. I have a lot of homework to do, it looks like. Is the Tawhado Bible only in Giz, or can I find it in English? Again, so what is there is no such thing as the Tawahid Bible. What we have are additional books onto the Bible that the mainstream people may use. So some of them are the additional books that are in the Giz are translated into English, but you would have to look at them individually. No worries, Abil. Hopefully, you'll be able to join us on Saturday. Opinions about Marmari. Well, I pray that he's well. Vernon asks, I think he meant Abraha wa Azmaha, who is mentioned in the year of the elephant of the Quran. Yes, I'm aware, but he's that is referring to King Caleb, and I'll talk about this Abraha and Wazraha ordeal. But I'll get into that. I think it would be great to have a retreat, and we would come to where you are at. Thank you, Fikr. We'll talk about that as well. You should look up IUIC Ethiopia. It has good history. Okay, I'll look into it. What Bible does Ethiopia use? Their own or KJV like Christian? Ethiopians use the Bible. There's no difference in type of Bible, but of course they use the one that was translated from the Septuagint, which is the Greek version. But there are additional books within the Bible, so it's not the 66 books that you may be familiar with, Joe. There are additional books within the Ethiopian tradition, but the Bible is still the same. Genesis is still Genesis. Adam is still Adam. Moses is still Moses. I think that's the biggest, misconception that we find when it comes to Ethiopian rites. All right. Okay. Uh, did you say King Caleb was Jewish or Amhara? No, I did not say King Caleb was Amhara. By the way, the term Amhara, Oromo, Tigray does not show up anywhere in any historical records prior to the 10th century. There is no record anywhere, any place written of Amhara, Tigray, and Oromo before the 10th century. You can live with that information. Is it Menelik the first completely made up history? Did he really exist? I think he is a made up person. Manilibel says. Well, it depends who you ask. I think the Ethiopian tradition is pretty adamant about the oral tradition and the fact that Menelik came from the Solomonic period. And I've talked a little bit about this last week, but I will be talking more about it in the future. It depends which source you're looking at. If you look at the oral tradition, it will say that, yes, he did in fact exist. But if you look at the Western tradition, it will challenge the oral tradition because most of the writings about Menelik the First come from texts from the 12th and 13th century. But one thing that they don't tell you is that they're dismissing the oral tradition altogether. Okay. Do you know where I can get it? Okay, there are a lot of questions about the Bible, which is interesting. He says Tigray is mentioned the Monumentum Adeltanium. Tigray. Yes, it is, but not as a race or a group of people. And we could talk more about that another time. Um, is it Book of Enoch mentioned about the name Ethiopia? Not that I'm aware of. The Book of Enoch does not mention Ethiopia, at least that I'm aware of. Um, Elizabeth says, I don't know anything about Ethiopian history. Can you recommend any books, please? Of course, I can recommend books. The biggest book that I'll recommend is my book, Hopeless Romantic: The Untold History of Ethiopia. It is found on Amazon. And of course, I have another book. As Elizabeth says, I love your book. I need answers. Yes, that's my first book. All right. Abel, which civilization? About the Ethiopian civilization or which civilization? Who is the descendant of the people of the kingdom of Aksum? We all are people that live in Ethiopia. Um, Aksum was a vast range. It was a huge place that kind of uh, covered a wide range of place, and since then there have been many migration and moving around in the place, and people have intermarried, and we've lived together, we've been together for this reason. We all are descendants of Aksum, and if anyone claims to be the real Aksum, then I challenge their understanding of history. As far as the old civilization, we will get into that, what kind of people they were, what kind of agriculture there was, what kind of society existed. Today, again, I'm just focusing on the name Ethiopia, and how it started, how it was a Greek word, but also giving value to the oral tradition. All right. Aksum is an Aga word, so we know. I don't know that Aksum is an Aga word, and I don't think we know that for sure. There's certain sayings that say that, but I don't think we know that for sure. Can you please tell me the name of your book again? It is Hopeless Romantic: The Untold History of Ethiopia. Do afraid to identify ethnicity in your study all history. I'm not sure that means. Which places did Ethiopia cover back in the day? We'll talk about that. Of course, it was in the northern region of present day Ethiopia, as well as uh, 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 Yemen. Stop lying. That was Tigray people, not all of them. When Minilik nation Amara claimed it, so Aksum is Tigray. Yared, you're more than welcome to have conversations. One thing that I'll tell you is I don't enjoy disrespect. If you're willing to have a clean dialogue with me and explain your reasoning other than saying take my word for it, I'm more than willing to have a dialogue with you. If you're willing to have a genuine conversation about Tigray, and then we can do it about Tigray belonging to Aksum. Um, there's open dialogue. I don't do disrespect. So if you want, we can have a dialogue. I can invite you to the guest. We can talk. But if you're unable to do that, then we won't be able to have a civilized conversation. Do Ethiopians have any connection to the Akkadians? I read that someplace. Please send me that reference. I would be interested to read more about this. Uh, Abel, I'll be bringing this topic on Saturday at 11 a.m. This Saturday at 11 a.m. I'll be talking about this same subject, but in Amharic. Yes, Liu, this is what I was talking about. There are various theories about the emergence of the name Ethiopian, where it came from. One of it is the theory that it was named after a king named Aethiopis. But the other one that we've been looking at is the Greek origin, meaning black, burnt face. So again, I just want to pause here and say, um, you know, you don't get your point across by coming here and saying a bunch of stuff, and maybe even, like, you don't change people's perspectives. You don't get your point across. You don't educate people by being loud, by being disrespectful. You don't accomplish anything by doing that. Instead, you get somewhere by bringing in your evidence, by bringing in your facts, and having a civilized conversation. By doing this, we can educate each other. Maybe there's something that I didn't see. I never said I'm the final word on these topics. I never said I'm the final person on any of these ideas, and what I say goes. No, uh, I will bring you what I've studied, what I've researched, and you bring me what you've read and what you've researched, and we will have a dialogue. But what can't happen is when someone says, "Hey, uh, uh, my way or the highway." You just don't accomplish anything with that. In fact, one of the reasons why I'm here and why I've opened up this medium for us to have these conversations is so that we are able to have a civilized discourse, and we learn how to have these conversations in a way that are not heated. Have you gotten a chance to read Mary Ras Aman Belai and Nibrawad Irmias's books? I have not gotten a chance to read their book. Please forward it to me, and I'll do my best to read it. Uh, all right, there are many ideas, but you think the meaning of Ethiopia's burnt face? Faleg Kadusan asks, what I think is that the Ethiopian term is indeed Greek, and the Greek is meaning is burnt face, but that also tells us, like I said earlier, it is definitely possible that the oral tradition is also true, that the king Ethiopius established the region of Ethiopia. Both traditions can be true at the same time. So that is the position that I have. You think, okay, was Eritrea also part of the Aksumite kingdom? Yes, it was. It extended all the way to the Eritrean region. Aksumite was definitely part of, covered present day Eritrea as well. Galatian, actually, if it's somewhat related, I can answer it. But if it's not, if it's not, like, if it's completely off, then maybe contact me offline. Uh, what does Ethiopian history detail about Nugus Ashama, aka Najashi? I'm not sure about this name. Maybe I'll look into it a little bit more. Ashama, aka Najashi. I don't know that name. Uh, does Mary have original sin? That is not the topic for today. So I will not get into it. Who is King Aethiopis? King Aethiopis in the oral tradition is the grandson of Ham. And the working theory is that Aethiopis is the one who established Ethiopia, and his son Aksumawi established the kingdom of Aksum. But like, as I've been saying, the word Ethiopius in itself is a Greek word, which means burnt face. Was Egypt ruled by Ethiopia, since Ethiopia is older than Egypt? Not that I know of, and not any history that I read of. Uh, Ethiopia was not ruling over Egypt. You keep the Habesha history to yourself, King Kong says. I don't know what that means. How old is the Giz language? We know that the Giz alphabet started as early as the 2nd century, which suggests that the language itself could have gone back even earlier than that, which is fascinating. By the way, having an African language dating back to the 2nd century is just, it's unbelievable. Where can we get the live recording? Do you have YouTube channel? Yes, I do. If you look at my YouTube channel, you'll see this as a recorded channel. About how many years ago could that be? The history about Ethiopians. Well, it'll be in biblical times, right? So we have Noah from Genesis 6, then we have Ham, and then Kush, and then Ethiopians. Are there Harari people ethnically Ethiopian or Somali? Uh, I mean, again, it depends how we're invoking the term Ethiopian. If we're saying Ethiopian is anyone who lives in the region, yes, ethnically, I believe they are Ethiopian. Um, by the way, even Somalians, this map that we have is like a present day map. It doesn't really tell us about the historical nature of these societies who have intermingled and connected and intermarried for centuries. Colonization is something that came in the 19th century and drew a map and said everybody stay in your regions. But this is not the reality of the history that goes back to several centuries. Okay. Let's see. Is there a place to learn Giz anywhere? Yes, that is on my website, gibel.org. I teach Giz online. It's a self-paced course that you can take. Why does Google say Giz is 5,000 years old? Is this accurate? Well, I don't know about I don't know about what Google is using, but I can tell Google can say anything, by the way. But again, it could be talking about the spoken language. The Giz spoken language could have gone back many, many years ago, but we know the writing system goes back to the first and second century AD. It does not go back earlier than that. And if someone says, oh, the writing system goes back earlier than the first and second century AD, say, show me where, because it doesn't exist. I'll be very excited to hear that. All right. Why do some Eritreans say that they're not Habesha when Tigrayans are? This Lana, I don't know that question. I'm not interested in that ethnic based question, so I'll not answer it. You're doing an amazing job in introduction Ethiopia and the new generation. Freedom, thank you for the kind words. Thank you, Kalgidan. All right, I think we should wrap it up here. Uh, uh, and I hope you guys have learned something. Again, just to recap, this is, if you guys are new to this channel, I'm trying to do something new. One day in English, one day in Amharic, have a conversation about Ethiopian history, and the hope is that we walk away learning something positive, and we have a positive conversation. I'm not here to talk about politics. Keep the politics to yourself. I'm not interested about politics. What I am interested in is and being able to have a healthy conversation around history. Let's learn about our history. Let's learn about various things. Today I did this talk in English. Saturday at 11 a.m. Saturday at 11 a.m. I'll be having this conversation in Amharic. Those of you who want to ask me questions, want to come and have discussion, civilized discourse, you're more than welcome to do that. Hope to see you guys then.